Well, this is a very hot topic for anybody in private practice who is deciding, should I keep doing in home or in the school, or should I finally take the leap and get my own office? And I can't think of anybody better to come and talk about this. Nish, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So, you're going to talk about a guide to real estate for SLP entrepreneurs, and not something we would typically think to talk on, right, in our field. But I think it's going to be super informative for anybody who is just on that like fence right now of what they should do with their private practice.
Yeah, because we're always so focused on the therapy. We're not really thinking about the business aspect of it and how you can kind of expand based on purchases and long-term things that you can do with real estate. So absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And you did this as like a free webinar a few months back, right? And how was it received back then?
Yeah, actually, people really appreciated it, especially considering the information that was presented by the SBA lender. I supplemented some of the things that she was saying with my own experiences and things that I didn't know at the time when I was making my purchase. So it kind of gives others a heads up or, a trail ahead of what they should do to ensure that they don't kind of make those same mistakes that I did when I made my purchase.
Do you feel like you made mistakes when you first made your purchase, or do you feel like it's all ironed out now?
No, I definitely think I could have done it in a different way. Just one specific thing, which is the name that my building is under. So my building
Okay.
is under my practice's name, but I really think I should have done it completely different, use the trust and, made life so much
Oh,
easier. So,
I bet you're going to talk all about that when we get to like the legal considerations or unique considerations. That's a
mhm,
really interesting, and it's something you would never think about.
correct.
Oh my goodness. Well, I can't wait to learn more. But let's go ahead and just briefly talk about the agenda and the bios and financial disclosures. So, we're going to take about 5 minutes for that. Then we'll talk about when it's time to look at real estate. And then we'll talk about leasing versus purchasing, which is something that I was like exploring about a year ago and learned a lot and didn't take the leap in any direction just yet. So I'm so excited to learn more. Then you're going to tell us what we should be looking for, some legal and unique considerations, and then we'll wrap up with references and closing. Nish, do you mind sharing your bio first?
So I am an ASHA certified SLP. I am currently located in the Atlanta metro area in the north suburbs. I My practice is really focused on helping families understand the policies with education and allowing them to access services best possible because I don't know if other SLPs are experiencing this, but there's a disconnect that happens when it comes to parents that are just not aware and school systems kind of knowing parents are not aware. So that's kind of where I step in. And additionally, the position of me having such knowledge and starting my practice and helping out all of my friends, I decided to create the Entrepreneurial SLP because I noticed that there were other SLPs beyond my friends that were also having challenges when it comes to dealing with insurance or just things that make sense in practice in general. So I created the Entrepreneurial SLP and I help other SLPs build their boutique practices specifically through billing insurance and other kind of shortcuts to kind of make life easy.
Yes, I was telling you before we started this interview that I've just learned so much from you over the past year. And once I decide where I'm going with my private practice, you'll be the first person that I go to, especially regards to insurance and credentialing. Marcia Church is in this conference and she has spoken your praises. She took your course. So definitely a good one. And I don't think anybody else is doing that. No one else is talking about that for SLP specifically, right? Sort
A
of.
little bit of chatter here and there. And I don't know specifics to how deep those therapists go with what their knowledge is. So yeah.
Yeah, you really dive in deep. And especially when it comes to like super bills, you shed a lot of light on that as well, and how it's not such a like straightforward thing as we think like, oh, I'll just give you a super bill if you don't want, if I can't take insurance.
Yeah,
So I've been learning a lot about that through you.
yeah, absolutely. Super bills are definitely not straightforward.
Well, really briefly, I've done this for every single pod course today. My name is Vanita Litvack. I go by she, her. I have a passion for AAC and literacy, and I've been able to present at local and national conferences and recently became an NLA trained clinician. And when I'm not doing speechy things like this, doing interviews, I am enjoying taking tennis lessons lately. Not very good, but I am enjoying it. It's good cardio. I also make specialty lattes, although this is not very special today, but it tastes very good nonetheless. And doing Cricut designs for my family and friends. Nish, do you do any of those things?
No.
What do you like to do in your spare time?
What do I do in my spare time? Cook. I really
Mm.
like coming up with new recipes and baking. Like right now, we're supposed to be doing me and my cousins, a bake off where I think the recipe's supposed to be like a raspberry loaf of some sort. We'll see how this goes. But yeah,
Oh, cool. So is it more like the baking or the like
both,
savory cookie side? Both. That's
both, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm pretty freehand when it comes to cooking on the stove or, just those kinds of recipes. But when it comes to baking, one thing I can't do is crock pot recipes. It never works out ever. So I stay away from that. But for the most part, I'm pretty good with everything else.
Well, I think with crock pot too, like if you are a good cook, like you're putting things in there and you have no control really over what happens, what the outcome is at the end.
Correct.
That's great. Well, maybe one day we can meet in person and I can't cook very well. I like to bake, so maybe we could trade
Uh,
off.
yeah, absolutely.
So I'll read my financial disclosures first. I have ownership interest in Speechy Side Up LLC and Tassel Learning LLC. I'm also an affiliate for Simple Practice and Meaningful Speech and receive commission for any sales made with my code. And I'm also a member of ASHA. How about you?
I am just the owner creator of Entrepreneurial SLP, and I'm receiving a fee for this interview.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so we hope that everyone by the end of this pod course will be able to describe at least 3 signs that it's time to get an office space, identify 2 differences in leasing versus purchasing an office space, list 3 characteristics of an appropriate office or clinic space, which is something I don't think a lot of people think about.
Mhm.
Like you go in and you think, oh, I'm going to like just buy this beautiful space. And then it's like, oh, who's that neighbor? Oh, who's that neighbor? So I can't wait to hear like all of your suggestions. But that was a side note. And then the last thing is we hope you'll be able to describe at least 3 legal considerations when getting an office. All right, so let's dive right in. What should SLPs consider looking, or when should they consider looking at real estate for their private practice?
Okay, so when I started, what allowed me to make the jump, so first I started traveling. So I was going to homes, and then my next step was getting a one space office. And I made those decisions based on my financials. So I said, or had a specific number in mind. I need to make this amount average per day, which was typically that actual mortgage, rent, whatever it is, in a day and a half or in a day. And then I can actually move into that spot. So when you have predictable revenue, that's when you would make that decision to pay for a space. Also considering is the market conditions. So just looking at what are the prices of places around you. For me, I think I kind of lucked out in the space that I got that was my very first space that was close to my home, which it looked kind of like a motel. But it was a bunch of different businesses within this one location, and you just picked your space and you rented out your space. So there was, real estate, there was a hairdresser, I believe, and it was probably about 40 offices or so in this one building, and we each had our own entrances. We had our own control of our utilities within our space. We had our own bathrooms. So finding something that makes sense when it comes to what it is that you're doing and it being priced appropriately is very important. Now, if you're purchasing, you really also need to look at the interest rates of where we are right now. So right now in our economy, we're at a pretty high percentage of interest that we're paying for spaces or for anything that we're buying. Hopefully it's going to flatten out and kind of go downward. But that's something else that you need to consider because the interest rate also kind of tells you what your actual payment is going to be. And if you're getting a space with a business loan, it may end up being a fluctuating interest rate that kind of just goes with the market. And you also want to consider your long-term goals. So what is it that you have planned for your practice? Are you planning on expanding, adding more disciplines, or just growing the one discipline that you have? Or also, do you plan to possibly rent out your locations? Or another thing to consider is if you're going to buy a space and the space is super huge, you can actually have a tenant that pays your mortgage. So you're just in the building as well, but that other person, you renting it out to them, they're the ones that are actually paying. And then long term, do you plan to have that building and maybe you can even close your practice altogether, but still have that space and rent it out? That's definitely another thing to consider when it comes to purchasing property.
Yeah, those are all really great considerations. I feel like when you went from seeing your clients in their home, mostly in homes, you didn't do any school, right?
No, no schools, just
Okay.
homes.
When you were seeing them in their homes and then you moved to the practice, did a lot of them follow you or did you have some drop off?
A lot dropped off. But what I did was I was in EI at the very beginning. So they were expected to kind of drop off. So as I got new clients, that's, I was seeing clients in their homes still, as well as seeing clients in the office. I had my days kind of split. So I was still receiving that income as I was building the income for my office space, if that makes sense. So we kind
Gotcha.
of had to, yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's always, I think, been my like mental struggle. It's like, do I build up my caseload and see all of these kids like, around where I live
Mhm.
within a radius? Or do I have like my 4 private clients right now, and I feel like and I have my other businesses as well. So I'm like, do I just start renting a space and then build it up? Because I was afraid of that drop off. It's such a hard thing. But I was telling you before our interview, I got very lucky that I can rent a space for an hour because I feel like if people are already coming to see me in that space,
Mhm.
once I get my own space, like they're already used to coming to me. Do you feel like that's like the best way to go about it?
Yeah, I think a slow build is definitely the way to go. I would have been very straight up scared to have just
Mhm.
jumped out and just went and got a space and just hoped that people would show. I definitely think having that cushion of those clients that were seeing me at or that I was seeing at their homes, making sure that I still had my income to support whatever it is extra that I was doing. And with the efforts that I was still doing to kind of build up the clients for my office space, like that, to me, that was a little bit more comforting than kind of just caution to the wind and just going. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because we have an arrangement, this owner and it is like a minimum monthly. And I was like, whoa, this is low. Like, I can't even imagine if I was like leasing a bigger space or leasing my own space and then having that pressure to build up the caseload. Thankfully, my life coach and I, like, she talked me off the cliff. She was like, think of this as an investment. Like, let's say it takes 6 months. So you're investing every month this much by
Mhm.
6 months, if you get like the however many clients you want, like you'll have made that back in like, this amount of time. So I don't know, like it was just like a different way to look at it. But I could see how like either having like a part-time job or having like a school, like 1 day school contracting position where like you're not all over the place, but maybe you are having like that predictable income like you were describing, and then you can like build your center space as well would be a good option.
Yeah, and that definitely also puts pressure on you to ensure that you're doing what you need to do for that other space that you're working on
Yeah.
building, because otherwise you probably wouldn't necessarily put in the direct effort if that's the space that you're really trying to go towards.
That makes sense too. Yeah, when you're like spread all of these different ways, like you have to make a decision. I think that was also like my personal reason for not like building my private practice so quickly because I know it takes a lot of like energy. Everyone I speak to that has private practices, like it's like once you open those floodgates and you start getting those referrals, like you get the referrals. I don't know.
Mhm.
That's what I hear at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess you have to have a good reputation to keep that going, but
Yeah.
the
And
ones that I talk to at least do.
yeah, and hopefully, because for me, it's a lot of word of mouth and finding me on Google. So when the algorithms change, if that's your thing,
Oh yeah.
then that's another thing to be concerned about. But yeah, definitely it does open a floodgates when you make that start. Yeah.
So you had an office and then you moved to another office. We might have SLPs here who already have a private practice, may already have an office. What made you decide to go bigger? Or did you go bigger?
I did. So I
Okay.
can tell you the route that I took. So I started with the one space office. And then within that same area, kind of across the street, was another office park where it was a tutor essentially, and he purchased that building. It was an upstairs, downstairs. And I rented out 2 rooms from him and a storage area. And the aesthetics of what it looked like was, I mean, it was decent, but I wanted more. I wanted it to be better. So with the amount that I was paying in rent there, I realized like, wait a minute, like there's this property that's, 15 minutes from my house that in this really nice office park that the mortgage, if I did the calculations, the mortgage would be the same as what I'm paying for these 2 rooms. And I get 5 rooms over here. And I can make it look however I want to make it look. So I went that route. And yeah, it was the financial, it wasn't a big jump financially from the 2 room space to having my own complete office. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that the aesthetics are understated too. I don't know if it's just like maybe personality types, but I feel like, especially just going from like working in jobs, like SLPs talk about this all the time, like where you're stuck in a closet or you're stuck in this tiny room, like no windows, and you're seeing kids literally from like 9 to 5 back to back every 30 minutes. Like, I think once you break out of that, you're like, I'm never going back. Like, I want to be in a space that makes me feel good because I'm going to be here for, a big part of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely renovated a lot of my space. Like I ripped up the floors, I did counters, bathroom updates, like the works.
Amazing. Was that
Yeah.
all through like the SBA loan? Because we're going to talk about those a little bit too, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Make sure to ask me those. But
Okay.
yeah, it was, yeah, there's a whole
Awesome.
little setup for that. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I did explore a little bit too. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about that. Anything else? Sorry. Anything else you wanted to talk about here before we move on?
It's okay.
Okay. Oops, I went the wrong way, I guess. Here we go. So you talked about it a little bit. Let's dive in a little bit more. Is it better to lease or buy real estate?
Depends on where you are in business or in
Okay.
life, probably. So of course, when you're leasing someplace, it's really flexible. If you decide like, hey, I really don't like this area and I really want to move my practice elsewhere, that's definitely something that you can do. Leasing again, it's also cheaper because let me tell you, the kind of money that I had to have in my bank account when making that purchase, it was a lot. Though I didn't have to spend it, I can explain that later. It's really expensive to purchase versus buy. So definitely leasing. If you don't have that buildup yet, go with leasing. And of course, when it comes to a lease, it's a fixed cost, right? So unless like your landlord, decides to raise your rent outside of the term. So typically when you're leasing, it's a set term that you're going to be paying a specific cost, and you can expect that. When you're owning, it's very different. You don't have any property management responsibilities typically. Typically, I have been seeing like a trend in property owners passing on the maintenance of the leased properties to the business that's in it, which I think is really interesting. But it's also not as severe as kind of when you own like a home, because there aren't as many systems to possibly go wrong in a case like that. because typically what the business is usually water and AC, or plumbing. And another thing that I noticed that happens when you're leasing is people update other people's properties because, of course, the aesthetics are very important. But in business, you'll find that for example, when you go into a really fancy restaurant, like they didn't buy that or lease that place looking like that. They more than likely updated it to make it look that way. And if they were to move, they've lost all of the investment that they've made. And then there's no equity in leasing. So after you've paid out month after month, there's nothing that you're going to get back in the end for that. Now, on the flip side, buying, well, you have ownership, right? This is your property. Though you should hide your ownership of the property, and you hide that through the trust. That's something we can talk about later. You would have equity buildup, right? So if you've made improvements, like myself, I've made improvements to my property, and then there's time. And I bought my property in 2017, and it's grown 100,000 in equity alone.
Wow. That's
Right?
incredible.
Right. So I can literally sell today and come out with an additional $100,000 than what I paid, which is, whew, okay.
A big relief. That's amazing.
Correct. Yes. And then there's your mortgage stability. So as compared to leasing, where things can kind of fluctuate, in buying as well, depending on your interest rate. So if you have a stable interest rate, you're all good. If not, you will have kind of that fluctuation as well. And then there's tax benefits. So the interest that I pay towards my mortgage, the property taxes, depreciation, all of those things reduce the amount of money that I owe the government in the long term. So when I filed my taxes, all of those things worked for my benefit. And I also have flexibility in usage, right? So if I decide that, I want to do something, add a different discipline or do something completely different with my space, rent it out, I can do that because I actually own this. But there's the startup costs. And the startup costs for me, the SBA, because of the kind of loan that I had, it required me to have about 10K in my account just sitting there. So they didn't ask for it, but it needed to be there. It needed to be visible. They needed to understand that it's accessible. And then I also have my property management responsibilities. Now, luckily for me, the location that I'm in is essentially like a office condo. And we have these things called CAM. CAM fees are the area maintenance fees where, they pay for the water. Well, I pay for the water with my CAM fees. And if there's something wrong with the exterior of the property, the roof, anything, that's all taken care of. But if there's something wrong with my AC or my interior plumbing, I'm responsible for that. So I have to make sure that that's all good when being an owner of a property.
So do you pay HOA fees for the
Yeah, they're called
property?
CAM
Okay.
fees. Yeah.
CAM, okay. And then is there like the risk of an assessment? Is that something you ask about when you are buying the space?
Yeah, so just like when you're purchasing a home and if there is an association associated with the home, if you're going into an HOA, you want to know what their account balance looks like. And it's the same with purchasing a property that has an association with it. You want to look into what that account balance looks like, how healthy it is, how the maintenance that they do regularly, or the large things that they may have just recently fixed or they know is coming up. So all of those things definitely matter.
Okay.
But I
Yeah,
haven't had an assessment yet.
that was something I ran into because my dad, he's a hearing specialist. So we were actually like looking at getting a property together. He has had like an established business for a long time. And all of that stuff was like very overwhelming because it's like stuff you don't really think about. And the place that we were looking at in particular, like, I don't think the account was very healthy. We decided to like pass on it, but it was just like interesting things that you don't typically think about when you're like, oh, let's go and like lease a space or like buy a space.
Yeah, absolutely. Because yeah.
Yeah.
I have a good realtor that really
Oh,
understands
good.
business as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, you definitely need someone like that on your side for sure.
Yeah.
How long should someone lease? Like, what is your recommendation? Like, should it be a year lease, a 5-year lease?
I am commitment adverse.
I know, me too.
So I probably would not do anything more than a year or two, though in business, I see that it's standard to have like 5-year leases.
Mm.
So you have to be a really established business to kind of make that decision to stick to something for 5 years when you really don't know what the future holds. Like imagine those people that started their lease during COVID, like, oh,
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you got lucky. You started in 2017, so you've seen this huge growth like with the place that you bought. That's amazing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Not lucky, smart. You were very smart about like the way you did the whole thing. So it's very good for everybody here that's like learning like how you did it and how it's worked for you.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was one of the best decisions that I've made in business because it's such a flexible option that I have. So I can shut my practice down completely and I still have this thing here that has equity and I can do something with it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, if you're like, I'm not like really into, well, the whole market could change, right? Like insurance could change drastically. And yeah, you could, like you said, maybe you just go to like training SLPs or something completely different, like being a property owner and subleasing like all of the spaces out. You said you have 5 rooms?
Yeah, so I
Okay.
have two, three, yeah, it's five. So it's four like therapy rooms and like
Mhm.
a storage stash break kind of area, I guess you can say.
Okay.
Yeah, where I store all my therapy materials, and there's the extra closet for like the electronics, whatever that board of
Yes.
your Wi-Fi and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I have a story to tell. Do you mind if I share it? It's about leasing.
Sure.
It's about a leasing agreement.
Let's hear it.
So when I had my caregiver and me classes and they were doing very, very well. So I was doing maybe like 4 a week. And there were like 8 families that would come to each of those classes. So I was like, okay, I was renting from different like play gyms around the area. And I'm like, I would love to just have my own space. I was tired of like lugging everything all around. I live in South Florida, like all around South Florida, and paying a very high fee to like rent the space when like the classes were very, very, the profit margin was super low. So I started looking at spaces. I found like the perfect space. And while I'm looking at it, an OT is looking at the same exact space, like literally there to see the same exact space. And I was like, well, like I didn't plan on being in this space the entire time. Like, would you be interested in like, lease like co-leasing it together, which is a whole other thing. It's like getting in a marriage with somebody and I just met this person, right? So she was like wonderful. We went out to coffee. I like really liked her. I feel like I'm a pretty good read of character. And we like decided we were going to go into it. I had my lawyer like draft up this co-leasing agreement for both of us so that we could get out of it if we needed to. And the place that we were looking at was within a condo building. And we were looking at one space within that condo building. And the realtor kept rushing us. He kept saying, like, okay, if you want this lease to go through, we're selling this condo in like 2 weeks. So we need to push this through like really quickly. And everyone I was talking to, like my father-in-law included, was like, that doesn't seem right. Like most of the time when they're like selling a condo, like everything is on hold. You don't bring in a new lease, right? So my lawyer looked at the contract. We sent back questions and he was like, this is like the easiest lease ever. But he like fixed the things that we asked. And it was a 1-year lease. And basically, we were like, okay, so if you're selling this place, like we want confirmation from the new owner that he knows who we are, that like this lease will carry over to this new owner. And he would not let us like talk to the new owner, would not like connect us at all. He wanted our deposit. He was going to take, I'm convinced he was going to take our deposit and run with it, honestly. So that definitely spooked me. Like that was that was December before last. So it's been over a year and now I'm finally like branching out again. But from that experience, I was like, whoa, like people, it can be like really scary. I mean, I had a lawyer too, and that lawyer fee was not cheap. We were like, I think we put down the deposit, or no, we didn't put down the deposit. We did sign the contract though, but he didn't sign the contract and he didn't get our deposit. So it like was null and void. And thankfully nothing happened out of that. But that could have been a really crappy situation.
Oh yeah, that sounds really shady. And
I
especially
know.
in this environment too. I don't know if in South Florida, like when it comes to corporate spaces, I guess you can call it, they aren't going extremely quickly. So you definitely could have had more time to think. The rush, oh no, that
Yeah.
red flag.
Yeah, big red flag. There was like a lot of red flags. So, yeah, this is South Florida. There are a lot of shady people in South Florida, unfortunately, as there are, I'm sure, like across the nation. But that was like, I'm like, why the first experience? But I think everything happens for a reason. It's like cheesy as that is.
Yeah. Fun fact, I used to live in South Florida as well.
You
So
did? Where? On the east or west?
Miramar. So it's more so on the,
Okay.
so I was in
Yeah.
Miramar and Miami. I went to
Okay.
Miramar High School. So yeah.
Oh, my dad lives there in
Ah,
Miramar.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good. We would have been like neighbors. That would have been awesome. And you're in Atlanta now.
Yes.
Okay. Amazing. So you know all about South Florida then. I don't have to explain everything. Well, I think those were some really good tips for people who are like considering whether to lease or to buy. And it's what I'm kind of gathering from you is like kind of how I approach things is like taking it easy, like not rushing to anything, and you can like grow and scale, right? That's kind of like I feel like what I'm getting from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I move as slow as possible. So I don't like having to kind of do revisions and fix things because I was too eager somewhere. So I'm a very slow mover.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like personality type, but also like there's a lot of risk involved in these decisions. So that is a really great way to like go about it too.
Yep. Absolutely.
So what should SLPs look for in a private practice space?
Okay, first of all, your location, like that truly matters. You want to know what's around you. What other, is there another practice around? Is it even, are you even, is that location even appropriate for the kind of traffic that you would need or for the way that your clients would access you? Zoning, I know when it comes to when I did my business license, the county looked at, well, actually it was a city. They looked at what it is that I would be offering and determine whether or not they would allow me to actually occupy that space. So that all of that information matters. Now, this next piece, the quality of the walls for SLPs. I know this is something we don't necessarily even think about, but when I was in that second location where I was renting the space, the 2 rooms from the tutor, there were afternoons where I could hear my neighbor full on snoring. Like he's in the other building. He's not associated with this mortgage in any way. He's over there. And I'm hearing him having a nice nap. Like it was so disturbing to be in the middle of therapy. And this is what I'm hearing. So definitely testing the quality of the walls. Bring a friend with you. You
Yeah.
stay in one, have the other person go to the next one and scream, like see what happens. Because we know we have kids, right? We work with kids, a lot of us work with kids, and it can be really noisy and it can be a disturbance to others. So we don't want to put ourselves in a position where, our neighbors hate us. That's just not going to be fun. You also want to think about your layout and your size. So like for your future growth. So when I purchased my location, it was just me. I rented out a couple of my rooms actually to 2 functional medicine doctors because my goal was to kind of rent out the spaces to other disciplines, PT, OT, maybe, or maybe even another speech pathologist that had like a different skill set than I did. But eventually I scrapped that whole thing and I just didn't want anybody in my area. So if I'm renting it out, I'm probably gonna rent out the entire thing versus renting out space. And maybe if I'm working with someone, they're gonna actually be my employee in the next room, not necessarily someone that could kind of just do what they want to do, because that happens. But you definitely want to consider the layout and size and what it is that you do within your practice. Like, are you going to be paired with OT and you're going to have swings? You need a really large space if you're going to be doing something like that, right? Is the ceiling going to be able, whatever it is that you mount, going to be able to take that installment of whatever tool that you'll be using in your therapeutic intervention. Then you also want to ensure that you can use that property for other things. So in our realm, we probably, like, the way that our offices would look, it probably would be multifunctional. We probably would be able, if we were to move out, we probably could have someone in a completely, there are multiple different businesses that can probably work within a space if we were to move out of a space that we purchased, right? So psychologists, maybe even lawyers, any kind of office setup, they probably would be able to use our space pretty freely, generally, unless you're a practice that has a gym. So that would limit you in the usefulness of the practice or the space if you were to leave. You also want to consider CAM charges. I talked about that earlier. So the maintenance fees for that area, if that building is a standalone, you probably don't have CAM charges. But if you're within a community, you probably may have some CAM charges if they're making sure that the exterior, so doing the lawn care and, you know, the concrete of the business and the parking lot, all of those things are something to consider, or that you would have to pay for. And then accessibility. One thing that I wasn't really thinking about when I got my first office space was I was actually on the second floor. And if I had a family who, you know, if there was someone with mobility challenges, then that probably wouldn't necessarily work. And another thing is the parking. Like, I look for ease. I think about when I go to my own doctor and I have to, like, go into this parking garage that I have to pay for, and it's a lot. So just making sure that your clients can kind of just roll up and just walk in is something that you should really be thinking about.
Yes, 100%. This is like a random question, but this is something that I also encountered while looking at spaces. Bathroom in your facility, is it a must or can it be outside?
I wouldn't want to have a bathroom outside.
Right.
I already have, like, listen, I have personal challenges when it comes to you, like, even in my own home. So I have 3 bathrooms, but I will only use one of those bathrooms. And I'm literally the only person that's here most of the time. So I can't even use the powder room in my own home because other people have used that powder room. So you definitely want to have your own bathroom within your, if you're like me, for sure.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
curious. Let's like have a little vote in the chat. Do you guys like, does it matter to you? Does your bathroom, could it be like outside of your facility? Like, is that a deal breaker for you or does it like have to be inside? I thought that was weird. I mean, it's like, again, not something you think about, but I would go into spaces and like some would have bathrooms inside and some would have them outside. And then I would go and look at the public bathroom. I'm like, ew, this is kind of gross. But like the place itself was pretty.
Mhm.
So that was like a challenge. And you do have to decide like, well, the place is really nice and the price is good, but like, do I really want that? You
Yeah.
know?
I think the only perk of having that bathroom outside is hopefully you're not going to be the one that's responsible for
That's
cleaning
true.
it.
Yeah,
So
very true.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we have like a lot of like private practices, at least like where I live. Like, how far should other SLP practices be? Do you have any like parameters on that?
I don't. Let me tell you. So when I came up with my practice name a million years ago, at the time, like, I didn't see that there was another practice with a similar name.
No.
So there's literally another practice that has my name, but there's more to their name. Now the state approved my name. So I listen, I don't have nothing to, do with that. But so there's that, right? And then my practice was based in Alpharetta. And then the office space that I found was in Roswell. Roswell and Alpharetta Connect. They're right next to each
Okay.
other. And then I looked up that practice again. She had an office space in Roswell too. So we are within probably a good 10 miles of each other with similar names. But the difference between us, though, is that she does not accept insurance. I actually do accept insurance, but I've come to the realization that we do have similar names. So when someone is calling my practice and they're like, oh, we're looking for so and so, I'm like, oh, you're looking for this person, call this number instead. And I redirect, and she does the same for me. But yeah, that was just a blunder, a really terrible blunder. But I would hope, even if a practice is very close to you, that you don't have the same, you cater to different audiences,
Okay,
so
that makes
that there
sense.
isn't, too much of an overlap or crossover, or someone thinks that, you're stealing their clients. Like, I don't think she's stealing mine, and hopefully she doesn't think I'm stealing hers, because that's not, I have no business. That's not where my mind is at all. So
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's so many clients to go around. There's so many wait lists, but like you mentioned, if you can like provide more of niche services or like cater to a different audience, that'll differentiate
yep,
you guys.
yep,
How does that play out on Google? Have you looked? Does it
yeah.
have you right after the other?
Kind of, sort of. So
Okay.
she has a lot, like, she probably asks for reviews. I don't ever
Mm,
ask for reviews, because I always feel kind of like there's a HIPAA thing, and I don't want to make
yeah.
anyone uncomfortable, but she ranks higher because of the number of reviews that she has.
Mm.
So
Gotcha. I know it's so like there's so many things with like Google and like the images you put up. Like I just made my Google profile and I was looking at like some of the other practices and like some of the images they have. I'm like, oh, like you definitely got approval for that, I'm sure. But like that child's face is on there. And just like being a mom of a 3-year-old, that was something I was super cautious with when I was like doing the caregiver and me classes. Like, even though I had consent to like take pictures of the class, like the kiddos, I'd always try to do the back of their head. I don't know. It just like makes me feel weird.
yep, yep, I
I hear
agree.
you.
I have very few pictures of kids' actual faces. Like, the parent is right there if I'm taking a picture. So
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
yeah.
And then the quality of walls thing, that's a real thing. And like you were mentioning, so like you had the reverse where like the guy was snoring. A friend of mine, a BCBA, just got kicked out of her space. They moved her to a different one. Thankfully, they worked with her, but she got too many complaints, like the kids that she was working with, like being too loud in the afternoons.
I can definitely believe that. Yeah, that's definitely something we should be thinking of and considering before making a purchase, especially making sure our neighbors understand also who we are, and we understand who they are, because that can definitely play into an ongoing relationship if they're, upset about what's happening in our space because we're interfering with what's going on in their space. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
mhm.
You're gonna get a kick out of this. So I have the perfect office, the perfect space to do classes. It's all free. Within my husband's office, but it is not zoned for medical. So I cannot use it for therapy. And that
Mhm.
was something I learned like later after the fact. I can still work there and I do some days, but I'm like, oh, like this would be so great.
Ah, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know much about this, but I wonder if it's possible for zonings to be augmented or changed
Mm,
or updated. Um, because
maybe. That's a good
that's
question.
yeah, that's definitely a thing. Like, when you see this, when you're driving by somewhere and you see that sign, that stake in the road of, there's going to be a meeting about this thing here, because they're trying to put something in
Yeah.
that's of a different zoning than what the current is. So that could be something to consider, depending
Okay.
on what's around your husband's office, if they might allow
I'll
that.
definitely take a look at that because they have like other kid related businesses, like a ballet studio or like a gymnastics studio, but it's like a primarily industrial park, like where
Mm,
a lot of trucks are coming in and there's bays and whatnot. So yeah, that's a good point. I'll definitely look into that. I appreciate that suggestion.
yeah.
All right. Anything else that SLP should look for in a private practice?
No, I can't think of any.
Okay. Okay. So, what are the legal considerations that SLP should be aware of when purchasing the office space?
Of course, as we just mentioned, the zoning.
Mhm.
So making sure that you actually can be there and you get permission to be there, the county knows that you're there, when that's done through your business license. Then there is insurance coverage. So with my office, because there's an association that's associated with the the office condo, we can call it,
Okay.
right? So it's kind of like a bunch of little townhouses, one-story townhouses, all connected. So they have their own insurance. So with my CAM charges, the maintenance fees that I pay every quarter, there are those fees are built in, right? So they pay for if there was a fire, the building would be rebuilt, but the interior of the building would be my responsibility.
Oh.
So that's where my comprehensive insurance plays in. So I have that as well as my liability when it's slip and fall. So if someone were to come in, they break their neck, hopefully that doesn't happen. That is another insurance that covers that. And then there's also your accessibility. So depending on when the building was built, from my understanding, there's a certain time frame where ADA compliance was required or regulated within the building of buildings just in general. So the ramps, the wideness of the doors, the accessibility to the bathroom, the width of the hallways, all of those things are something you should consider. And if you're if you buy a building that was built before those requirements, those are updates that you may have to make depending on the size of your business. So just another thing to consider.
Okay, yeah, definitely things that you typically wouldn't think about. And like your insurance coverage, is it through like your professional license? Like what is it, Mercer? A lot of people do Mercer, or is it something different?
This is not even talking about Mercer. Not at all. All right, so this insurance coverage, I believe this one is through Farmers.
Okay.
So my slip and fall and my comprehensive, so rebuilding the interior as well as someone getting hurt, this is my Farmers insurance. And then, of course, we have our own professional liability, which is my Mercer. And then the association has their own insurance, which covers the building itself. So there are a couple insurances that are playing a role in this.
Everybody's covered. It's got
Right.
all angles covered. Okay, got it. Do you know anything about like regulations regarding doing therapy within your own home, or like considerations that SLP should have if they decided to do therapy within their own home?
I don't know about that. And I think that's regulated by your actual town itself.
Okay.
If I were to consider that personally, I would need a completely separate entrance.
I know, right?
I wouldn't want anyone walking through my home in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, it really is determined by your town and what regulations that they have, because some of them don't even allow you to do that, actually, from what I remember.
Mhm.
So that, yeah, you would look up the license for your town.
Yeah, I am so fascinated by that because there are SLBs like on Instagram who do therapy like from their home, but I'm pretty sure in my town that is not allowed. And it's just like, oh, that would be like so nice. Like you could like even if you like invested instead of investing like maybe in a condo building, like investing in like a guest house where you would go and like see clients. But I like your thought, like what you could do, which is like sell yours, as someone's not going to want to come and buy your guest house. But I guess when you sell your house, that's part of it. So
Yeah. Or you can have one. Have you seen there? I've been seeing them on social media where you can buy like a little house on Amazon and like set it up in the
no,
backyard.
I need to
Like,
look at this.
yes, it's a whole like unfolding and arms up, and then you put stakes in so that everything stays. Like it seems super cool. Like if you had a mother-in-law or someone that needed to live with you, that could be the perfect kind of setup and office. If you,
That's really cool. I'll look at that. We've got the hurricanes, as you know, down here. So I wonder, like, it'd probably have to be concreted down and whatnot, but that's a really good option. I didn't, Amazon has everything nowadays. Like, that's amazing.
yeah.
Cool. All right. So, and I think we included like some unique considerations to be aware of as well. So, can you share those?
Yeah. So, okay. One thing to think about before purchasing is ensuring that your personal credit is on par.
Mm.
Because when the bank is going to look at your personal credit to make a decision about giving you business credit. And one thing that you should also have is a DUNS number for your practice. So it's essentially kind of like another social security number for your business. Like there's the EIN and you also need a DUNS number. No one talks about the DUNS number, but they wanted my DUNS number to check my history. So one thing that I can say, I know there's people talk about business credit and it seems extremely complicated in the way that people had discussed it, but in me building my own business credit, I literally, it just was my bank accounts and the credit cards that are associated with my business. And that's the only business credit that I had at the time when they gave me access to having the loan on my business. So it's purely in my business name, but I am a guarantor of it. But if someone were to look up, for example, my credit history, they won't see my property. They won't see that I have this other loan here at all, not on my personal credit. It's all on my business credit. Something else to consider is I use an SBA loan program, the 7A loan program. Now I can explain why I had to have that $10,000 in my account. So the SBA, the way that it works is that, okay, there's the SBA program, and then there are banks that help the SBA administer that program. So you would just have to find a bank that actually administers those loans. The bank that I went with wanted an income projection. So they wanted me to essentially, here's what you currently make. Now, what do you think you're going to make in the future? So essentially, I just had my schedule and now I just filled in the gaps with additional clients and the least amount that I can make from that client. So meaning my lowest contract per client that I would see. And I just gave them that projection. I've heard of other SBA programs or banks requiring you to have a business plan. I've never written a business plan. I don't have a business plan, know nothing about a business plan. I just kind of just did it all from memory. And with the SBA loan program that I had, it allowed me to build in my down payment because what they did is they considered the rent that I was already paying and made a determination on whether or not I would be able to pay a mortgage with a similar rent. And they essentially just kind of gave me the loan because they saw that I was able to pay, well, not pay the rent that I was currently paying. And it aligned with the loan that I wanted from them, the mortgage. So it's because it was essentially equal, I qualified for the mortgage. Now, when it came to the place itself and the renovation, what they did was they injected $10,000 into my loan on top of the cost of the building for me to renovate. So the way that they did that is they required that they see that I actually had access to the same $10,000 in my account before they would give it to me. So if I remember correctly, when I closed on that loan, I don't remember that I paid much of anything when it comes to costs because I believe the seller paid closing and I just came to the table with the 10,000. I handed them the 10,000, they handed me back another 10,000 and that was what it was. Yeah, that was it. Now, another thing to consider within this kind of loan ecosphere of SBA is most often, at least at the time that I was doing it, those loans were variable. So it would be the standard amount that the bank collected and then plus whatever the market was at the time. So whatever added to it. I refinanced recently. I refinanced last year because the loan itself was getting up to like 9%. I was like, oh heck no, we're not paying that.
Yeah. Which you
Because
probably started way lower, right?
yeah, when I started, it was 4. So that was
Wow.
a great percentage. It was 2.5 plus another 2 on top of that, wherever the market was at that time. But I refinanced to a stable arm for the next 5 years. I'm feeling like I want to pay off the property and just be done with it. But when you get an SBA loan, you need to consider if it's a variable rate where they're going to change based on what the current market is. Think long-term that you may have to refinance that if it gets to a point that just doesn't make any sense. And asset protection. So this is the mistake that I made. When I made my purchase, I was like, great, it's not going to be in my personal name. It's going to be in the business name. But what I really should have done was I should have created an LLC and a trust and had the property purchased in the LLC, a completely separate LLC, not the one associated with my therapy business, and then put the LLC within a trust and made myself a beneficiary of that trust. So speak to a lawyer on that. It's a little complicated, but there's so much protection in that, right? So if, for example, your practice you were to be sued, your practice were to be sued, that property is not a part of the suit because that property doesn't belong to your practice. It actually belongs to the trust that's within an LLC. And also, just in general, if there's some really, really good lawyers that know how to just search databases and find what you own, they would never know that you owned the building that you're located in because that doesn't show up anywhere if it's within a trust, within an LLC. So someone would have to know that the trust exists and who the beneficiaries are of that trust. So there are just things to consider.
There's other benefits too, right? Like to doing that, like besides like the risk, like aversion. I have a realtor friend who buys like commercial real estate for somebody else. And he was trying to explain that to me, but I was like, woof, like way over my head. But he was, yeah. And now it's like coming back. He was basically saying, like, don't buy it in like your name or your business, but buy it in like, you have to form a new LLC and then buy it with that.
Yep. Yep. So you're
Yeah.
not traceable in a,
Yeah.
yep.
So can you switch that over at any point?
I can. I definitely
Okay.
can. It just
It's a lot.
time.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to put my own personal house in a trust as well. So all of that needs, I'm just going to do it all at one time.
Wow. Wow, that's so fascinating. For the same reason, the house?
Yeah, so that it's not accessible if I were to be sued for any
Yeah.
reason. So, or if
Mhm.
someone were to like look me up, they don't see ownership. They just see.
Mm. Yeah, you feel like with an LLC, you're protected, but I guess you're not so protected as you think you might be, right?
No, because you're still in my state. Um,
Okay.
just knowing, for example, who owns that LLC, you can just go look that up and sue the LLC. So that's
Yeah.
really easy to do. But if it's within a trust, like the properties in a land trust, that information is not as readily available. Like you can't you're not going to necessarily know who the beneficiaries are unless you find the trustee
Mm.
and you lawfully have to make them show the documents that explain who the beneficiaries are of that trust.
Gotcha. Okay. Like, what's a simple way to describe a trust?
A trust is a container where you store your valuables, but it's
Okay.
essentially, depending on who you're speaking to, essentially hidden. Like you don't know, you may know who the trustee is, but the trustee doesn't have to share anything with you.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
mhm.
Once you put something in a trust, do you have less control over it?
Depending on the kind of trust you use. So there is
Mm.
irrevocable trusts as well as revocable trusts, and you can take things in and out of a revocable trust. Irrevocable, I believe those things stay, they can't move, they can't do anything. Yeah.
It's so fascinating. So
Yeah.
we had like when we did SLP Creative Con last year, like so many tax questions came up. So many. So we actually have an accountant this time who's incredible. She's my accountant, she's my VA's accountant. But I think next time we'll have to have a lawyer come on too and help us out.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
I love that
great.
idea.
This has been incredible. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap this up?
I can't necessarily think of anything, but definitely if you're going to make the decision to buy, think about all of your exit strategies
Mhm.
before making that purchase and all of the ways that you can use that property because you don't want to be in a situation that creates more stress on the business that you've already, developed. So just be mindful, have plan A, B, and C ready to go.
That's a great idea. Great
Mhm.
tips. Well, this has been amazing. I thank you for including some references here, such as ADA and SBA, because both of those came up. And if people are not following you, can you describe like where to find you, but also a little bit more about like what you talk about on your main page?
Okay, so you can mostly find me on Instagram. I'm very active there. I talk about all the things. So if I see something in a Facebook group and I'm like, I think, we need to expound on this, I'm definitely going to share it. So I talk from the rooter to the tutor, anything that, comes to mind. Yeah, it's a lot for me sometimes. but I go there. So you can find me on Entrepreneurial SLP on Instagram, and that's also my website. If you need to email me, it's Nish at entrepreneurialslp.com. NESH, by the way.
Perfect. Amazing. And those are our handles. Well, Nish, thank you so much. This was super informative. And we'll see what kind of questions we get in the panel discussion if people had like burning questions throughout.
Awesome sauce. I will be there.